Bill C7, and the Liberals have shoehorned a bunch of really terrible things into this legislation. People with mental illness can now seek medical assistance in dying. It sounds like minors now can seek this without the consent of their parents. Very little family involvement. And you have a personal story about this. And so, when we were talking off camera, I found your concerns very compelling because this is something that your family has gone through.
Yes, my late brother, Glenn Stirling, was a very well-known chiropractor in Alberta and British Columbia. And he was a health and fitness buff all his life. He was a marathon runner, ultra-marathon runner. He helped thousands of people to have better health. And in 2016, he had been working overseas and he returned home, and we knew that there was something wrong with him. He often would fall down. He looked like he had a stroke. He was quite impassive in his face. But we didn't know what was wrong. So he went through a number of tests, and we found that he was suffering from what's called PSP, parasupranuclear palsy, a progressive parasupranuclear palsy, which is a very aggressive form of Parkinson's, a cousin of Parkinson's. So at the time, medical assistance in dying, or MAID as it's called, had just become part of the legislation in Alberta. And he ultimately opted for that. But before that, I want to say that Alberta Health Services offered him the best care ever. They gave him probably a 12-week program, I think it was, at the Schumer Center, where they taught him some balance techniques. They worked with him on occupational therapy. They had a social worker there who met with him and with the family members to try and help him address these issues of declining health. But ultimately, he just didn't want to go on. He was falling down more and more. It became, we had also great neuroscientists and doctors at the Foothills Hospital. So he was falling down more and more. He was very humiliated because his gait was quite staggered. His speech was slurred. So often he would get kicked out of a store because they thought that he was drunk when he was not. And he couldn't even defend himself because he couldn't speak properly anymore. So he opted for MAID. He requested MAID. But that was no guarantee that he would get it. So we had to go through many counseling sessions with social workers, with psychologists, with the physician who agreed to assist him in dying. And all along the way, the intent was to help him live. The intent was to verify whether or not he actually really wanted this, or was he being coerced in some way, or could he find another way forward? They all wanted to help him live, is my point. And once the system had concluded a number of these meetings, many of these meetings, they recognized that, no, he actually really didn't want to live like this anymore. And they granted him the medical assistance in dying, and they gave him a very, very dignified death. And I was there with him. And I have to say, it's somewhat contrary to the human desire. You always want someone to live. But I understood that he wanted to die. And my concern now is that in a time of COVID, when people are very lonely and isolated, when they can't actually go and meet with physicians and all these counselors, when we're strapped for cash, when many people are now being deemed to be quite inconvenient by the medical system. I'm not saying the healthcare providers, but say the insurance companies, the pension plans, the people who have to pay the tab. I think that it will just be a very convenient way to push people off a cliff, and they'll never have the kind of care and attention that my brother had. And that's my concern, is that that, you know, we really don't have the money to do that kind of detailed work with people anymore. So I can imagine in a nursing home where someone will say, well, we have jazzercise next week on Tuesday. And oh, by the way, the doctor's coming in to do MAID on Thursday. Would you like me to sign you up?
If you'd like to get access to my show, as well as other great TV style shows too, like Ezra's Nightly Ezra Levant Show, and David Menzies' Friday night show, Rebel Roundup, just go to rebelnews.com/subscribe. That's rebelnews.com/subscribe.